Hi, everyone. I'm John Sullivan with 401k Specialist. We have another great panel discussion on a very timely topic, which is 401k performance metrics that really matter. How do we know what we do actually matters and is making an impact, and which metrics should determine retirement success? We have experts with us today to help figure it out, and they also happen to be top advisor 5 participant outcome nominees, or TAPOs as we call them. So joining me is Austin William with GRP Financial, Douglas Parker with Sage Ruddy and Company, and Jake Rushton with True North Wealth. We're also joined by Kylie Donahue with J.P. Morgan Asset Management, and we're very proud to partner with J.P. Morgan Asset Management on the TAPO program. They're doing some amazing things in the area of participant outcomes, and we're excited to have Kylie with us today. Today's session is interactive, so I want to mention our real-time poll function, as well as to ask any questions you like through the chat function, and we'll get to as many as we can. So we have limited time, and I want to dive right in. And Doug, I'm going to start with you. Which metrics really do matter when measuring successful participant outcomes?
Well, obviously, participation and deferral rates are the key thing that everybody is focused in on. I know the industry is leaning towards successful retirement preparation. Can we get an employee to 60 or 70% of pre-retirement income? But we kind of go even a little more baseline than that. We meet with our participants on a one-on-one basis. Every enrollee gets a one-on-one custom enrollment. And so we really track is how often can we sit down with an employee for 15 minutes prior to enrollment to get them coached up. And our success rate there is the first domino. And if that domino hits, then the success rates are much better. So what we found is that by offering that, tracking eligibility for employees, tracking when they're eligible to join a plan, we sit down with about 80%, a hair over 80% of the eligible participants. And if we're sitting down with them one-on-one and doing 15 minutes, we're going to get a 98 to 99% participation rate. So that really drives our participation.
Understood. Austin?
The approach that we take is quantitative and qualitative, to be honest. So from a qualitative perspective, we just want to know, are participants engaged in the plan? Are they accessing the provider tools? Are they utilizing the website? Are they utilizing the app? And then, do they attend the meetings? So as Doug mentioned, we too really enjoy the face-to-face personal interaction and kind of the success that drives overall. And so we want to know, are participants signing up? Do they provide feedback to HR? How engaged are they overall? And then from a quantitative perspective, we also do dive into the metrics that the providers offer. They have great tools. I think there's value in utilizing those resources. So for example, what percentage of the total assets are in stable value funds? And we break that down by age. And then if needed, provide necessary communications and customized pieces to participants based on those factors, as well as how well utilized are target date funds. What's the overall asset allocation within the plan? I do say that the income replacement ratio component is quite important as well. There is some limitations to that based on outside assets and if they include that data or not, but that income replacement ratio is a good starter. And especially if you're meeting one-on-one with participants, you're able to better fine-tune those numbers and really walk them through, okay, here's how you pull in outside assets, and really give them a true picture of how prepared they are for retirement.
Understood. Kylie, I'd like to bring you in for the product perspective. What are you hearing from the advisors with whom you work?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what was just said. I mean, I will say I worked for an advisory firm, large DC shop for a few years. And one of the things that we really wanted to focus on was engagement. You know, how engaged were the participants with the plan, number one? How did they feel about their plan? And then compare that to how the plan sponsors thought that they felt about the plan. So that would immediately identify areas for opportunity. And then, you know, the point that was just made. I mean, this is quite challenging and we're getting there, but, you know, at J.P. Morgan, and I'm sure most of the advisors feel the same way, like really it's all about trying to get participants to an account balance that's sufficient to replace their paycheck during retirement. And that's a tough thing to measure these days, but, you know, I think we're getting closer and closer to it. And I think those are really the major things that I hear.
Yeah. Last but not least, Jake.
Yeah, I agree a lot with Doug. I mean, the one-on-ones for us is really critical. And the main metric that I like to measure is, and it's more of it's a tough one to measure. It's confidence in your ability to retire. So are these employees that we're helping, that we're servicing, do they really know the math behind actually being able to stop working one day? And to me, that focus and that real attention one-on-one is where we can actually do the math, figure it out, give them the confidence to know that they are going to be okay. And that oftentimes does not just include the 401k. So I sometimes try to get away from the term 401k plan and more 401k account, because I think there's a much bigger picture we have to grasp around what a participant or an employee needs to have in their lives. And the 401k is very powerful in that whole picture, but it's only one piece. So we really have to help them understand how it fits into the puzzle of their future. And if we can do that, I feel a lot better. I feel like we're seeing success in that way, to see people, have that boost to know that they're on the right path.
Excellent. I want to point to the poll question. What participant outcome metric do you see as the most important? So make sure you go out and vote, and we'll just go ahead and revisit that later on in the session. But moving on to the next question, I think, Austin, this one will be for you. What would you like to be able to accurately monitor and measure, but are having trouble doing so currently?
Sometimes those automatic features become a challenge, whether it's escalation or who is part of that automatic enrollment component. We see so much value in that plan design metric. And frankly, sometimes there's limitations at the provider level. So that to me is definitely kind of the first one that comes top of mind.
Jake?
Yeah, for me, I think it's getting rid of the stigma of sharing your financial picture. So a lot of participants, a lot of employees I meet with, it takes a couple meetings before they actually open up and tell me really what's going on. Mm-hmm. And that can be, people just starting out in their career. That can be physicians about to retire that are making, at the top end of the spectrum of income. There's still this weird, I don't want to share with you. I don't want to tell you. And if we can get past that, we can really figure things out. But a lot of times they just keep it all in, and either that could be a negative, like debts and things that are not telling me about, or it could be a positive, other accounts, other ways that they're investing and saving money. We need the full picture, and then we can actually start to move forward.
The doctor niche can be somewhat challenging in that regard. How do you get past that? How do you earn that trust?
It takes a lot of being genuine. I think really showing up and being showing that you actually care is something you can't fake. You really have to get to know these people and care about their family and get to know them. So that takes a lot of attention and honestly a lot of work. And you really can't shortcut that. That's not something you can outsource to some tech solution. It's not something that you can just have, a junior advisor do. You have to be present and aware of each individual. And that works in my niche, and I understand that doesn't work in everyone else's. And sometimes, when you get to the enterprise level, that's really hard to do. But getting a physician to trust you, you have to show expertise, and you have to show genuine ability to help them.
Speak their language. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Kylie, what should we be monitoring and measuring but can't yet?
Yeah, I think one of the things that would be really interesting, and I get asked a lot, is, what do participants actually do with their money when they start withdrawing it during retirement? I just think that's a piece that's a little challenging to know. Are they actually rolling it over to IRAs, or are they taking it and putting it into a savings account, or are they just spending it? And, we've spent a lot of time through the Chase side of our house really trying to look at, the participants that we can, if we feel that we really have a holistic view. But, I think that's something that, advisors ask me all the time. And I wish I had a better answer for them. And hopefully that's something that we'll know more about in the future.
Yep. Doug, best for last. What do you got?
Well, I think Jake hit on the key factor for us is being able to look at a client holistically, whether it's the owner of the company or a single highly compensated employee or a guy down the shop floor just running a machine. To be able to sit down with them and get a holistic perspective, and then understand what role will the 401k play in that bigger picture. I love, Jake, the way you described that, not a 401k plan, 401k account. I'm going to steal that incidentally. The other thing that I would love to be able to track is terminations. We're finding more and more opportunity with rollovers. On the upside, we're dragging a lot of money into plans because we do the one-on-one at the front end. We're finding more and more folks who've got 401k balances from prior employers. We've got a little bit of an expertise built around rolling money in. And I was amazed last year how many dollars we were able to add into these plan balances that way. On the other side, when an employee's been terminated, I'd like to know that the afternoon it happens because we want to get them out of the plan. Managing terminated balances for clients, for plan sponsors is a pain. 3 states and 7 jobs later, we still got to find this person and send statements to them. So we'd love some way to be a little bit more involved in that.
So taking a look at the poll question, what participant outcome metric do you see as the most important? Right now, participation rate is out in front, but surprisingly, other is a close second here. So when we're talking about participation rate, contribution rate, deferral rate, plan investment performance, or other, Doug, what are some of the others? I know you mentioned this, up front in the first question, but just reiterate that if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. We know that plan performance is a byproduct of participation. So rather than focus on performance, and we do the fund screening and all, make sure the funds are all up to speed. What we really want to make sure is that people recognize that we're there as an advisor and they lean on us for guidance. That's the reason we put so much effort in the front end of it. The other byproduct of that is because we're doing enrollments on a regular basis, most employers will have us in their facility on some kind of 6 to 8 to 10 times a year kind of basis. When we're walking through the shop or through the offices, people start to recognize the people that they're dealing with. They're no longer, if you're around once or twice, you're a salesperson. If you see someone in your office 5 or 6 times in the course of a year, you start to recognize that they're part of the fabric. And so we want to be engaged that way. That brings a lot more personal conversations, a lot more confidence that you're not here to sell them something, you're here to give them advice.
Anybody else want to chime in?
I thought on that too, to piggyback on that, Doug, because it's a great point, is that continuity, that regularity that they see you, in the long run as well, what that provides is retention for you as the advisor. So it's a lot harder to get fired as an advisor on a plan when you have those ingrained relationships at the participant level. And that really only happens through hard work, regularly being there, and providing value.
And can I add to that, John? That's a great point, Austin. I think the concept of what is the most important thing to do for a plan, it's unique for each plan. It's understanding the goals of the plan, and you can't understand the goals of that plan if you don't spend time with that client. You really need to be in their world. You need to know what they're trying to accomplish. For me, it's tax strategy. I mean, we're trying to max out the partners the best we can. And in doing so, the rest of the employees and staff, they benefit from that. But it's a very different design. We're not doing auto enroll. We're actually doing 3% non-elective safe harbor plans. So they don't have to put money in to get a match. So it's a very different discussion we have to have with them to help them understand why they should put money in, because they're getting money and they see it sometimes just as a bonus. We have to change that. So totally agree with that.
Has it ever been, obviously you talk about how in your niche that it's very high income, very high debt load, and no savings. Do you have to combat that debt load? Is that really the ultimate barrier, just getting them to save?
I don't know. I don't think it depends on their mindset. If it's really makes them happier to get rid of that debt as fast as possible, then we have them do that. And even though having money from the tax side of things, saving more in their accounts, their 401k, their cash balance account, will put more in their pocket long term. If there's an element of, I got to get rid of this, otherwise I can't sleep at night, then we do that. And sometimes I think the bigger barrier is just helping them understand how they're going to get the money out. They get how it goes in. They get that they're getting hit on taxes. They know they write a big check to the IRS every year, every quarter. And it's this unknown of, well, I still think I'm going to have to pay a lot of taxes to get it out. Helping them understand that whole path is really what I think gets them over that bump of, I gotta fully fund this thing. I really got to put more money away or I'm going to have a struggle later.
Kylie, I want to give you a chance to chime in if you got anything there.
Yeah, I mean, not really, specific to the last couple, questions, but I would say that obviously participation rates are incredibly important, but From my experience at that DC shop, it really is a combination of participation rate and contribution rate. For example, I had one client that, they had a very low participation rate, and so they wanted to add automatic enrollment. And we tried our hardest to get them to add automatic escalation as well, and they didn't. So we came back a year later, and we're doing our investment committee meeting, and now the participation rate went from like 50% up to like 85%, but the average deferral rate for the plan had gone down from like 5% all the way down to 2%. So it was really wide opening for our plan sponsor, and they did ultimately agree to the auto escalation. So I mean, I really just think they need to be used together.
Kylie, I'm going to stick with you actually. Are plan sponsors asking for anything, or plan advisors that you work with asking for anything different related to metrics in the COVID era?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit. I mean, I've gotten an uptick in, advisors calling me and just finding out, if we have, from our record keeping side of the house, if we have any data on increased distributions as a result of, the CRDs, or have people taking out more loans. Plan sponsors in particular have been very curious regarding if we've seen an uptick in phone calls or web usage. And, for the most part, we really haven't. So those are just some of the things that they've been asking for. I will say that we have found that by moving to a more interactive WebEx with the chat feature, that participants are a lot more engaged during participant education sessions. And so we have been able to, pass that along to plan sponsors.
Understood. Austin?
One thing that comes to mind that we kind of haven't really touched on yet, but I think there's so much value too in surveying participants. So that's something that we do where we want to try to get an idea, one, what kind of topics do participants want to hear? But then also that gives us kind of a baseline level to start for education. But then also it helps to identify how engaged participants are that we talked about earlier. And then it gives an idea as well of what metrics, what topics, what level of sophistication overall is the participant base at. So that surveying of participants is something that I think doesn't happen enough, but we've seen some good value in those results. And then also to share with the committee, because often the committee is so removed from the participant education piece that they are blown away with what occurs at the participant level. So that regular reporting going back to the committee, again, showing your value, but then here's some key topics, here's some takeaways from these surveys that we've gathered.
Doug, what's new and different in the COVID era when it comes to metrics and reporting?
I'm kind of surprised that we haven't had a lot of questions. When we're doing our annual fiduciary reviews, we're getting a lot of questions. We're getting questions about loan provisions and our employees taking more loans than they typically have. When the rules changed in the spring, we went out hard to make sure I thought for sure there'd be a run on loans and a run on distributions. And of course there's some, but nothing like I was anticipating. So I was pretty pleased with that. And sponsors want to know, if we're seeing more distributions, and the fact is its uptick is barely measurable. So we haven't seen a lot of that. We have had, we had a frustration happen with that because we're in the shops in facilities so frequently, and that's part of our regular pattern. We couldn't get out there. We created a program called Teleke. We immediately did a bi-weekly 15-minute update for your 401k plan, and we did it generically enough that all of our plan sponsors could send it out to all their employees. We had a great connection at the beginning of that. That waned with the market going back up, kind of waned a little bit, and we don't get the numbers we were getting, but we're still doing it. The idea behind it is proactive communication. I was making a note there. I wasn't just sending a text out when Austin made the remark about surveying participants. We do a lot of education programs at our firm. We have in our private client business, we have a regular education program called Sage Ready University, and we've adopted those topics into the 401k. So we'll do those on site on a pretty regular basis, 30-minute deals, and they're pretty broad general education topics. But I've never gone to the next step, and I think Austin, it's an awesome idea is to do a survey that not only gathers information back from plan participants, but it's another illustration to the plan sponsor you're connecting to their plan. So we'll be doing that this afternoon.
There you go. Jake?
Yeah, this COVID change, I mean, we did some things I think were unique to the industry. I really was fascinated what was going on with the online course side of the world, as far as just someone that knew something to teach other people, and they were putting it all online in a way that they do the work once and share it with everybody. And I realized this is something that was bothering me for a long time, is I would go into a plan, we'd do a quick 15-minute group meeting, and then we'd divide up to one-on-one meetings and help people individually. And over all day long, we'd tell the same information. And so I took this opportunity to take that same experience and put it into a video format, basically on a landing page for each individual client, so that wherever they were, if they were at home in the middle of the night, at work, they could pull up this page and they could get most of their questions answered right there. And when we would get other questions, we would add them to that page. And so now we've been able to just basically answer the question once for the whole group, which has been really effective of our time. And we've been able to add Zoom meetings and quick 20-minute calls with people that have questions. And that, I think the problem of people wanting to see face-to-face has kind of gone away. And now we're able to do that much more effectively and be more efficient with our time. The other interesting thing we saw is we got really good at helping clients get through the payroll protection program and helping them file those forms and get them through some difficult couple of months, which really wasn't a normal thing, another value add that we figured out we could help people with. So just trying to adapt and change and find a way to provide information at any medium possible, whether it was video, through an email, through a webinar, a Zoom call, whatever it might be, just being able to reach them so they know that we're there, even if we couldn't be in person in their office for a while.
That's great. We've got a question from an attendee that I'd like to throw out to the group. So anybody who wants to chime in is fine. Do your record keepers / TPAs track all of the quantitative data you use to track performance, or do you track some of the data points yourself? How much do you rely on the TPA?
Well, I'll give you a couple of responses. As far as the investment performances and how the plan's operating on a from investment perspective, we use FI360 as our primary screening tool, and some Wilshire and some Morningstar data will gather together for that. But as far as activity in the plan, we track participation pretty closely. We're proud of the numbers, and we want to strut a little bit on those topics. But we have the TPA attend every one of our annual fiduciary meetings, and they come in, with pretty precise data. We want them to be part of the conversation. So when we're talking about performance of the plan, do we have it tuned up correctly? We always have the TPA as a part of that conversation. Not always willingly, but you can pretty much get them there.
Sure. Anyone else?
Yeah, we do the same. So I think allowing and the provider to get in front of the plan sponsor helps you establish the relationship with the provider, which is good. But then also the provider seeing the plan sponsor and relying on those metrics, those data points. We don't look at anything outside that we're going to try to record keep just for potential for error. We don't want to be accountable for a wrong data point that then's relied upon and it's wrong. The record keepers are doing a good job of that. So that's typically the data that we rely on.
Understood. We've got about 5 minutes left, and I just want to finish up with kind of a fun question here, but still informative. What one thing would the other panelists and attendees be surprised to learn about your practice? And it could be anything, not necessarily metrics or measurements related. Doug?
Okay, fun. Something about the practice. I'm not sure that there's anything magical going on here. We tell all the younger folks that join our practice, we're here to save, we're here to help people. They're getting their advice and their information from CNBC, and that ain't a place to get your guidance. It just has to be customized. So we're really trying to spend our time on that. The other thing I'll tell all the folks on our team is if we're not having fun, we're not doing this right. So we integrate a lot of oddball things into it. 3 years ago, we did the Summer of 401k Love, and I bought as many T-shirts as I had participants. So we went out to every job site and handed out T-shirts and had Summer of 401k Love. We want you to love the 401k plan. We've hired bands to come in and play at participant meetings. We send an ice cream truck around annually. So it's legit. I mean, it's business. We're doing all the correct work, but we're trying to add a little bit of levity, a little bit of fun to the whole thing. If I can get a group picture of 150 people in a blue T-shirt and send it to the good folks at the blue vendor. Tell them we're representing pretty well. Everybody's happy with that kind of stuff.
That's it. And don't forget, your firm is wicked old too. I was going to say you're wicked old, but then I had to clarify. So
appreciate the help.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Jake?
Yeah, I would say there's two things that make our firm unique, and it kind of goes back to the history of, our founder, Marty Watkins. He's been doing this over 30 years, and he worked a lot with medical associations over the years. And because he works with physicians and he likes to help them personally, the tax strategy always would lead to a 401k. And so years ago, he would pick up and start to do a lot of 401ks, but he didn't really have enough time and want to put the attention into running the plan. As they get more complex, as now we get more regulations, it kind of got away from him to the point where he brought me in to run just the 401k division. So we really divided our office into personal wealth management and then 401k. And that has freed up his time to focus on what he enjoys. It allows us to actually continue and maintain helping clients. We actually won a plan back that he had years ago and lost because he wasn't there servicing it like a normal advisor would kind of expect. And that's been really helpful for us. And he did one more thing. He actually hired a CEO. Even though he's the owner and founder, he hired a CEO to kind of run the day-to-day operations. Mm-hmm. So in between all of that, there's a lot that goes on in the day-to-day. There's a lot of HR. There's a lot of operational things that can pop up. He just wants to meet with clients. And I see far too many advisors trying to have all those hats on and be the CEO, be the HR, run a 401k plan and do personal business. You can't do it all well. You're going to have struggles doing that. You have to bring in good talent and learn how to divide your office up so that you can really grow and succeed by having specialists do what they love and are best at.
One of the big themes at the Excel 401k 2020 digital series is the move from 401k to wealth management and retaining those assets once they've retired. Is that still a differentiating factor for you, or are you seeing more competition in the space?
Yeah, it's been, I've kind of started my career, 6 years ago, just doing 401ks and being really clear, I don't do personal business. And I thought that was an advantage. And now I'm learning that most of my clients, they want that seamless integration. They want to have the help personally available to them. And it's definitely a value that you need to bring as an advisor, but I think you need to split it so you're able to focus and have your time understanding the plans, because a 401k plan is going to take, being a specialist there is going to take way too much energy to also be really good on the personal side. So I think you have to divide it, but this still needs to be within the same firm, I think is a real advantage.
But do you actively market the wealth management side of it?
I bring it up in the one-on-ones, and I don't, but as far as like being really loud on LinkedIn or other digital channels, no, I don't really push it a ton. I kind of just see the problems or hear the problems and questions come up, and then I introduce the right advisor. So it's a very warm handoff. I don't necessarily come in and just push and promote and do a group meeting and try to get as many rollovers and other things as I can. Right. It's find the problems and here's the solution. And that's worked out a lot better.
Austin?
It's interesting because we take a little bit opposite approach, because we've been hired on new business from advisors that have done exactly that, of promoting their one-on-one personal planning, which we don't do. So that's a little bit of a differentiator. I know I see both sides of it, and I see the value on the wealth management side. But for us to come in and be able to say, hey, we know that this conversation with the employee that we heavily promote is purely with their best interest in mind. We're not here to try to sell them ancillary services. I think it speaks pretty loudly, and they appreciate it.
That's great. Kylie, I specifically saved you for last on purpose. What do we not know about J.P. Morgan that we should, and you as well?
Yeah, I would say one of the things that I was really impressed when I first started with the firm is just how everyone is so passionate about doing their part to try to really help improve participant outcomes. And I would say that the firm has an incredible amount of retirement-related resources that you can leverage, whether it's thought leadership, information from a legislative standpoint. But some of the recent resources that I've been most impressed with and retirement advisors have liked the most are digital resources that you can access right on demand. So, it's just something you just have to go to our website, sign up, and there's 3 or 4 resources right there on the spot that you can take advantage of. And then regarding me, just that I've been specialized in the industry for over 20 years, and I've been in record keeping roles, been in DCIO, been in management, and then most importantly, I have sat on the same side of the table as you because I was an advisor at a 401k shop, or a DC shop, I should say, for a few years.
That's great. Yeah, you've seen it all. Wonderful. Guys, this is exactly what we needed. There's a reason you're all top advisors in the industry. So thank you so much for your time. I do appreciate it. And thank you to the attendees for being here. Just a reminder that the Excel digital series will continue at 3:30 Eastern time this afternoon. So thank you again. We'll see you soon.
Thanks much. Thanks for the invitation.
Thanks
Thanks, guys.
everyone.
Thanks,
All right.
everybody.